Welcome, and thank you for joining for another whiskey review. Today, we're going to take a look at the Longrow 18 2021 edition, 46% ABV. Dustin, what do you got as far as the cask maturation here, my friend?
So this is the paper tube edition, as I like to call them.
Yes.
This one came in at 30% bourbon, 60% sherry. And you ready for this one, Mike?
10%.
Chardonnay.
Wow.
And I do have a single cask Longrow 15 that was aged in Chardonnay, and holy God, that's good.
All right, Dustin. Been a while since we had a Longrow 18. I think we only brought him one other one, haven't we?
I can't even remember, Mike.
It's been a minute.
You know, they don't, for some reason, we don't get Longrow 18 here locally. We get the Springbank 18.
Yeah, not these.
So I had to get this from the UK. I had to pay secondary, which, believe it or not, it's cheaper to buy secondary Longrow than buy Longrow or Springbank 18 retail in the US.
Doesn't shock me.
Yeah, now Springbank 18 secondary is a little higher over there.
All right, so Longrow 18, natural color, unchill filtered. Was it 2 times distilled, heavily peated, Springbank?
Something like that, yeah. I always forget the 2. Is it 2 point something or 2?
Oh, you're right.
I think it's got there's
two,
decimal
two,
or something, yeah.
Mm.
That is funky, dirty. White wine note is unmistakable from that Chardonnay.
Dirty and sweet, man.
Gasoline.
This is just fire and ice. What a direct dichotomy of 2 flavors.
I'm getting some very distinct medicinal medicine notes.
I got a little bit of Lefroy coming up in here, almost.
Yeah. I mean, I also get a lemon lime thing going on, which kind of is a little Lefroy-y. Now, as I nose it more, though, it gets cleaner and sweeter. Initially, it's funky.
Yeah, it came off really sweet, punchy, as well as very, very dirty. You know, I usually can pick up, the smoke and the dirt notes pretty quickly because that's what I'm looking for in the Longrows.
Yeah.
And it's there. But that sweet note stood up to it the whole time.
Digging more in, there is a nice little bit of tannicness. This definitely does not come off like an older whiskey on the nose. 18 seems like it comes off younger than 18. Not in a negative way, but I'm just not getting, 18-year-olds, oak notes or anything like that.
Yeah, there really isn't any oak notes. Usually I expect an 18-year-old whiskey, and I don't care if it's a Lefroy 18 or, what it is. You're starting to 18 years old, you should be transitioning away from peat smoke and into oak smoke. And I'm getting just peat smoke here.
Yeah, I mean, even in your unpeated stuff, you're starting to go from just the sweetness of the cask and some of those cask, the vanilla from the bourbon, the red fruits and dark chocolate notes of sherry cask. You should be starting to get some heavy oak, and really, it ain't here.
Getting some light cinnamon.
Oh, I can see that, yeah.
Almost just some, I would say brown sugar or sugar in the raw.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you got some of that Springbank pastry note in the malt. It's subtle, but it's there.
Yeah, some type of...
It's really just sherry and white wine really kind of coming through together. It's really sweet.
The white wine really does sweeten it up. It almost reminds me of the Moscatel Lagavulin 16 that we had.
Yellow sweet tarts, specifically.
I can say candied banana peel.
Could see a little of that, yeah. I'm really digging this one. I mean, it's funky, it's weird, but it's just...
I consider quite a long time when it was this whiskey.
Yeah.
Sometimes with heavily peated whiskeys like this, it takes a while to get past them.
This kind of reminds me of some of those old Lagavulins that, you brought out, that are, the 20-year-old age-dated ones where, again, not getting the oak notes, and not getting the ideal, best sherried notes, but just some of those old whiskey, funk notes.
It's like I said, like the Moscatel, and something you brought up in Springbanks before, say the 18, is you brought up that wet wood note. Mm-hmm. It's not the wet wood note, but there is some sort of a funky vegetal something on the shore side left out in the sun.
It's just, it reminds me of vintage bottles that we've cracked. Not super vintage, but 20 years ago, the stuff that was on the shelves, that it just has a different note. It has some kind of elements from the past, and I'm getting some of that here, which is, I don't know that I always get that on Longrow.
Well, Pete does that to me in general. But again, I think that Chardonnay cask was Chardonnay. That's a nice little compliment. There's kind of a white sweetness or kind of a white chocolate-esque sweetness to it.
There's something here really reminding me of some of those old Lagavulins you brought. I don't know how to really describe it. It's just sort of a
There's a little minerality.
vegetal funk, kind of that out by the pond kind of thing.
It reminds me of that Moscatel, that 16-year-old that was from, I think, 2016, if I'm not mistaken, the facial.
I'm even thinking there's notes of like some of the 91s that we've had. It doesn't have that sherry note. Like, this sherry's not the same at all, but there's something else.
Longrow is always a tricky one to figure out. It's almost sashayed in a purple sweetness now. Mm-hmm. Caressing.
Oh, so smoky. Oh, man. I always forget. Sometimes when you have Longrow after having like an Isla, you don't think of it as really peaty, but coming from Springbank where you get a little hint of smoke, Longrow is such a nice, smokier, richer note here. Oh man, it's not as sweet on the palate as the nose. It's a little more subdued there. Just really nice old whiskey notes coming through. I am definitely getting some of that oak now. Again, not super stately whiskey, but again, it has like the funk and complexity of old whiskey, but it doesn't quite have that oak note. So it's doing like a nice. If you're not a big fan of some of the heavier oak notes, this is definitely going to give you, strong, like aged whiskey without the oak.
Yeah, the smoke ash is unique for a Longrow. It does sort of remind me of a heavy medicinal smoke like a Lefroy. This is very ashy and sooty to me on the palate. But still has that really meaty backbone to it. I'm kind of sashaying away from in that way. It reminds me of those two Islas, but it's kind of its own thing. It's almost salted pork meets some type of whipped topping with creme brulee on it and some burnt edges.
Super salty. I'm getting the lemon drops big time here as the fruit note.
There's a tannic citrus note to it. It's the salt's building on this too.
Yeah. I mean, you're good call on like kind of getting into the pork meats. I mean, you're almost getting. I mean, dare I say? You're almost starting to get into like some bacon-like elements here.
It got very meaty and very salty quick.
Yeah. It's not particularly sweet though. It's actually kind of like a white wine. You know how they kind of.
It's dry.
It's dry and it's not. It's got a little bit of a sourness. It's sweeter than.
But the sweetness isn't substantial on
No.
the palate. It's very thin, very superficial.
No, it definitely doesn't come off as a dessert. This is,
like I said, there's like a wisp of something, some type of creme brulee, some type of spread or something. But overall, man, it's pretty meaty, it's pretty salty, it's pretty coastal.
very, very. I like the coastal note, and then I almost get like the burnt note of the creme brulee. I'm not getting a ton of vanilla here. That's kind of where I'm.
I kind of thought before I put water in it, I got a little bit of vanilla, but
I'm not saying there's none, but I just don't get much.
The ashiness of this kind of takes away some of those notes for me, or there at least would dilute them to a severe degree.
Yeah, water's bringing the oak out a little bit more.
This is one of the smokier, I'm not saying smokier. It is one of the tarrier, ashier smoke notes on a Longrow I've had maybe ever.
I mean, I'm with you on smoke too. I mean, it's very much like wood smoke barbecue, out on the beach, funky. I mean, this is, man, if you're an Isla guy, this is kind of going to be right up your alley. I mean,
yeah, not only on the beach, but I mean, again, there is a bonfire going on that beach. There is specifically wood ash to this.
Oh, funky.
I don't often get ash on all of them. Like you do Lefroy's, but this is right there with Lefroy ash.
You mentioned grape earlier. The grape's really picking up now too.
It's kind of all over the place with what's going on.
Ooh, man.
Again, this is another scenario where they probably need to add a third cask in there just to get it away from how dirty this thing really is. Really sooty.
I honestly think they built this entire blend around those Chardonnay casks. I think they tasted those and went, wow, these are so intense. We got to do something with them. But we can't use too much or it'll overdo it. I think these casks legitimately were... I think they really wanted to actually show off that Chardonnay, and they built the rest of the whiskey around it. That's my guess. I think the Chardonnay has done a ton for being 10%.
Yeah, both the sweetness and the ashiness. To some degree is superficial, but the ashiness is just such a strong, pungent smell. Yeah, man, this is ashtray in a 1970s bar. You know what I mean? Big amber fucking tray on that.
Yeah. So, sometimes we talk about the cask maturation kind of being the driving, powering force of a whiskey. This one, it really is the peat smoke that's dominating this one, and the casks are kind of giving you something else to think about while the smoke is building and billowing up.
I try to help you.
Really, I mean, they've definitely not. You think 60% sherry. We're talking about the Chardonnay notes, so you start to think, oh, they've kind of hidden the spirit, but no, this is very spirit driven in a really good way, while still letting it kind of be complemented by these interesting notes. I think that's what the Chardonnay kind of does, is it doesn't interfere with the malt. It just adds to it.
What I think it is a parachute trying to take this anvil of smoke and slow it down before it hits your palate, bang, like it's hitting the earth at 300 miles an hour. Because it is a smoky whiskey. It's a dirty, smoky whiskey.
Getting kind of misty with that water I put in there. It's actually misted up real nice.
Wouldn't surprise me. Oh, man. Yeah, this is such an ashy Longrow. All right, Justin, what are you as far as the whiskey score on this one?
I'm going to give this, Mike...
Let me go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
87.
Whoa, okay.
I mean, I think it's quality whiskey. It's not that. It's super ashy for me. And compared to the other Longrow 18 that we've had, it came off a little bit more balanced, a little more well refined. This one doesn't seem as old as it really is. And I just think it's a bit too medicinal, too ashy for me, with just a little bit of superficial sweetness. Thoughts?
Well, we're deviating a lot here, because I'm giving this a 90. I was debating 91. This is my favorite Longrow 18 today, by far. I'm really close to a 91. Today, for some reason, it's not drinking like a 91 for me. I was expecting to give it a 91 coming in. This is honestly my favorite Longrow that I've had, 21s included.
Yeah, no, I get it. We need to compare this again with like another whiskey, say like an 18 or Springway 18 or something like that.
That's one that I think a lot of people are debating, because these things have gotten to about $300 now. So if you're lucky enough to be in one of the few places that gets both, and you see them on the shelf, which one to buy? That's a good question.
Yeah, we'll probably throw that together here for you guys, so I can properly have it next to another sherry whiskey to see how sweet it really is. Anyway, those are our thoughts on this particular whiskey. If you guys had a chance to try the 2021 Longrow 18, 46% ABV, let us know what you guys think. Dustin, until next time, what do we wish the folks?
Happy smoky drinking.
See you then.